Hesp. It's a pleasure to see everybody out and radiant on this nice summer's day. Shekhem and I are always kind of teasing about Chicago's weather. He said this is a Midwest streak record. We had 2 warm days in a row. But the weather always cooperates for him. I don't think hasn't been too many occasions when he's been here, even in the wintertime when it hasn't been warm. My name is Shekhem. I'm one of the chiefs here within the Chicago community, and I've been given the job of introducing His Majesty. And for those of you all who aren't familiar with him, I want to give you a little bit of a background on Shekhem. And this task kind of gets lengthier and lengthier as time goes on because Shekhem keeps doing more and more wonderful things. And I would love to be able to tell you about all the great things he's doing, but it would be my lecture instead of his, and I wouldn't do that to you. But Shekhem is our King of Kings, and literally that's what his title means, Shekhem, the King of Kings of the Osiris-Set Society. And the Osiris-Set Society is a Pan-African spiritual organization that was founded by Shekhem in 1973. And it is an organization that is committed to the upliftment of Black America and blacks all throughout the world, and to a further end, mankind, through applying the principles and wisdom of ancient Africa and the ancient world. And to that end, we are so committed to promoting African culture that the government and the organizational structure of the Osiris-Set Society is based upon the traditional kingship organization of Africa. In line with that, we have a number of, within Osiris-Set, a number of nomes that we call the various states: Chicago, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Milwaukee, so on and so on. And each one of those states is ruled by either a king, a queen mother, or various chiefs that we have. Shekhem in that light is the priest king of the society. And the Osiris-Set Society is based upon that form of government because religion or spirituality has to permeate every aspect of the culture. It's not just a political system where you have a king who is there to do all the horrible things that we've heard about kings throughout Europe. And unfortunately, we've never heard about the great things that the kings of Africa did. But the greatness of our culture comes from the fact that spirituality is at the heart and soul of every moment and every single inch of the culture that we have. Shekhem has authored some 20-something books. I asked him, and he says, man, I can't keep up, you know. Of the latest one is Metu Volume 2. How many here are familiar with Metu Volume 1? Okay. Well, Metu Volume 1 has gotten world acclaim, and we're here today to really celebrate the highly anticipated Metu Volume 2. Ever since Metu Volume 1, people have been asking, is Volume 2 available? I'm like, have you read Volume 1? Have you instituted some of these things in your life, you know? But it's been highly anticipated, and I think what's so great about it is because it is a further continuation, as the title of the book itself says, Anuk Oser, of the idea of the transformation of the spirit. And if there's one thing that we as a people all throughout wherever we are, after having been downtrodden and having been humiliated by this Western culture, the idea of knowing that we can be and live as God is such a needed idea and such a needed reality, if not in the world, but especially amongst our people as a whole. So that's what we're here today to celebrate, and without any further ado, I'd like to give it up to His Royal Majesty, Shekhem.
come on to Chicago. Or maybe keep talking better about the weather, you know? How are we doing, folks?
Great.
So I must say, Hetepu. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Lafia, peace. Very good. It's a pleasure, my honor, to be here once more again, sharing with you. As you know, those of you who have read Metu Volume 1 and who have been following the work that we've been doing here in Osada Set, are you all hearing me back? You can hear me well? Because I don't think, it's a matter, you know, we go to Egypt through books, or we travel actually to Egypt, and we see the expressions of a, you know, vigorous culture. You know, a genius of a culture. We see the pyramids, you know, we see the architecture, we see the expression of a mind that was far ahead of everybody else some 5,000 years ago. We see the expression of a mind that gave the world civilization, gave the world its religion, its mathematics, its architecture, language, skills, philosophy. Even the script that we used to write English with is the Hieratic script of Egypt that was modified by the Phoenicians, and then later on by the Greeks and the Romans into the script that we are now using. I know, of course, that many of you have been taught that that Western society is a Judeo-Christian society. But we know that the Jews and the Christians studied in Egypt. We know that, you know, the Egyptians have written tens of thousands of books and had hundreds of libraries long before Abraham was born, long before Moses was born. We know that long before there was a Greece, little black boys in Egypt were struggling with quadratic equations. And the other black nation, Sumer, the other son of Ham, the Sumerians of the great kingdom of Shinar. We know little black boys and little black girls were struggling to solve the Pythagorean theorem before Pythagoras was born, 1,000 years. You see? And what's happening is that you don't know these things, at least readily, because somebody's been trying to hide this truth from you. You see? Somebody's been giving themselves credit for your cultural accomplishments. Right. But the worst part of this is that they did not take the best part from you. They did not take the arts of civilization. They should have left the mathematics alone, the medicine alone, the geometry alone. They should have left the knowledge of philosophy alone and taken the African religion. Then at least the world would be much better than it is today. Is it? We go to the bookstores, we look for books in Egypt. You know, the books by Wallace Budge, by Breasted, by Mercer, you know, Faulkner, and even the books by many African-American historians nowadays. And all we hear is how great Egypt was. Okay? But the thing is, you know, man hasn't changed. Man is the same kind of being he was some 6,000 years ago in the heydays of the Egyptian culture. What we want is to know what made the Egyptian great.
That's right.
So America is only 200 years old, plus 20 or so. Egypt lasted 4,000 years almost as a political entity. 4,000 years as a political entity. You know what's going to come together? When you put several million people in a little space, what happens? They tend to fight each other, destroy each other, unless they have a superior culture, unless they have a superior knowledge of human behavior, unless they have a superior knowledge on how to raise up people. You see? So this is what we want. to know. I don't want to rebuild pyramids. I want to raise black men and black women so that they can have good, solid families. I want to raise black men so that they can stop killing black men. I want to raise the world so that we can stop killing each other. But you will never think of going back to Egypt or to Africa for this wisdom, because somebody told you that these were primitive people. Right? They said philosophy started with Greece. But when the Greeks wanted to have a philosophy, or something they called philosophy, they had the word for love in their own language, philos. But the word for wisdom, Sophia, they had to borrow from the Egyptians, from the Egyptian goddess of wisdom, Sophik Eabut, because that word was not in their language. But it's only fitting because we know where they all went to study. Plato, Aristotle, all of them would let you know they studied, they got their wisdom out of Egypt. Listen, even Moses, the Bible said, had the wisdom of the Egyptians. Even Jesus, by the time he was 12 years old, disappeared into Egypt. If the Egyptians were so wicked, why did the Christian Savior have to go to Egypt? Everybody wanted to kill him, but the Egyptians, the black people of Egypt, appreciated him, gave him a haven, and educated him. So he just spent those years from 12 to 30 doing nothing. What was Jesus doing in Egypt? So I want to share with you that great culture that gave the world civilization, because we have to recapture civilization. This book, volume 2, the Metu, is called Enuk Oser, I am Oser. If you faithfully do the exercises in this book, and the exercises are based on your everyday life. We would take, you go to this book and you take your everyday life, everything in your life, and make spiritual exercises out of them. You with me? So they can see the spiritual value and meaning in everything that's happening in your life. And you're able to trace and track your spiritual development. And by the time you complete those exercises, several years from now, you will be able, like the ancient Egyptians said at some point in your life, Enuk Oser, I am Oser. I wrote these books, volume 1 and 2 is the first 2 of 6 volumes. Don't blame me if our African wisdom is so deep and so heavy. That's going to take at least 6 volumes to introduce this topic for you, because that's all I hope to achieve is an introduction. I see a lot of young black men and women in here that I know want to carry on the work. Because when I were your age, I wish somebody, had told me about these things. So when I see young folks getting it so early, I feel full of hope. Sure enough. I wrote these books because there's something very, very wrong in America today. Something very wrong in the world. I'm talking about something worse than black men killing black men in Rwanda and children. Something worse than Christians killing Muslims and raping women in Bosnia. Something worse than, the white and white violence in Ireland. Something worse than black boys killing black boys in the streets of America. Something worse than, teenage girls, babies having babies. There's something worse happening than that. And that is so frightening is the fact that today, on the eve of the 21st century, with all the ologies and the isms, with all the CD-ROMs and information highways and books and libraries and bookstores and professors and masters and whatever, nobody is saying we got to call a time out on the fact that the things that's supposed to have saved us is not doing the job. See, that is the worst part. Okay? That when we look at all the ologies, psychology, sociology, religion, education, those institutions and so forth, we should not be having the problems we're having today in the world. Okay? We have so many people that have arrogated themselves to the positions of, leaders of society. They have the know-how, the scientific know-how, the word from God, the dispensation from the heavens or whatever, and we should have been saved a long time ago. Things are getting worse. I mean, I'm a man. I walk down the street, if I see 2, 3 black boys or white boys coming down my way, I get apprehensive. I start to look for my Florida water. Where's that for? Well, I don't use guns. No, I sprinkle some Florida water. I call them that old town religion on them. So imagine how a black woman feels when she walks in the streets and comes 2 little black boys or white boys. It shouldn't be that way. In 1985, I went back to Africa for the first time, Ghana. We went partying to this hotel, And it was 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we going home now. And we walk out the hotel. There were no taxis. Everybody, they said, it's not New York. It's about 12 midnight. We're going to bed. So we had to walk to our hotel, and, it's a little, 1-lane highway, and it's bushes to the left and bushes to the right, and pitch dark. No street lights, This is Africa, y'all. No lions or tigers, nothing like that in the bush. Just thick bush, And every once in a while, a little girl, 7, 8, 9, with her food on her head will pass by, going home. And I said to my Ghanaian chaperone, I said, how y'all let your little girls walk 3 o'clock in the morning by herself like this? He said, oh, those things, I know what you're thinking. Those things don't happen here in Africa. Our culture will not permit it. I said, we need to bring this to America. We need this in America. You see, but with all the ologies and books and information delivery system and so on and so forth, it should be better in America. But nobody is calling time out on these things that are supposed to work and are not working. Okay? Now, what's the cause of the problem? Why are we having so many problems? Okay? We have to go back to the knowledge of self. One of the greatest monuments in Egypt is the Sphinx. Okay? I saw a special on television recently. This white man wrote this book and did this thing about that the Sphinx was carved by people from outer space. White people are heavy. Anything great in the past that was not done by white men had to come from outer space. And they have that's to put it on national TV.
Okay.
Then they say, oh, we're not racist.
Yeah.
They want to reduce racism to angry statements by black people as if we don't have a right to be angry about their racism. When Mrs. Farkin gets up and says, you can't treat us this way and call them names, they get upset. But what they do is cool, not racism. I guess the Martians came to the earth and saw black people and got their minds blown so bad, they have to, make a sculpture of a black face in the middle of the desert. Right? Like they came all the way from Mars and checked out Egyptian culture and said, man, this is heavy. Let me leave the sculpture of a black face, You right? Okay, that's all right. It was built by inscription at the base of the Sphinx says, "Man, know thyself." A great monument. You know, head of a human being, body of a lion. Thing is huge. Been there for thousands of years. Some people don't even know how old the thing is. Okay, but we know it's a sure enough Nubian face, that's for sure. You know, pragmatic, you know, very African. But little Stella says, "Man, know thyself," because it's saying the first thing you need to know is yourself. And it's an ancient African saying that once you know yourself, you need not know anything else. Every pursuit of knowledge is, if it is of any value, it should lead you to better understand yourself. Because if it doesn't, it's a waste of time. Time that you should be taking to learn, to help yourself. Okay? This is important for you to understand. Okay. But what do you find out about yourself when you develop self-knowledge? Before we go to the ancient Egyptian, the ancient African, get our insight into self, excuse me. Let us jump ahead and find out what Western scientists have discovered about human nature, since you're all scientific these days, you know. So I have to approach you through your Western mind first. It's all right, I can play the game. About 50 years ago, you know, Western psychologists discovered that the human brain has something to do with behavior. That's only 50 years that they have discovered this. Okay? And, you know, that branch of psychology, which is not even yet a science, is called psychobiology. Okay? And there's another branch about 30 years old called sociobiology. What the psychobiologists discovered is that you don't have one but four brains. Okay? There's a little brain the size of my thumb or smaller, okay, that projects above the neck into the base of the brain, called the reticular formation or the reticular complex. And inside of it, there's a little, you know, structure called the globus pallidus that controls your body language. That part of the brain is also called the serpent brain or the reptile brain. Why? Because it influences you to behavior that you share in common with reptiles. Your body language. You ever seen lizards mating? They bob and weave, right? You ever seen brothers trying to impress girls? They strut down. Women trying to impress men, they put an extra zip in the Hesp when they walk, right? Body language. You smile, you frown, you know, you do all kind of grimacing. You have to support your emotions through bodily expression, because emotion is energy that is dispense itself into the body. Okay? Without the appropriate bodily expression, you cannot support an emotion. Okay? If you fail to understand the body language component of your emotional experience, you will not be able to control and master your emotions. Okay? For you to be depressed, you have to slump. You have to let the face drop unexpressionless, or with a sad look on it. Okay? The next time you feel that you want to be depressed, do something that's under the control of your will. Tell yourself, pick up your shoulder, smile. And you find that you cannot sustain the emotion of depression if you're standing tall, chest out, and smiling. You know what I'm talking about? Okay? What I'm saying to you is that, you know, this body language thing that we have supports our emotional expression. It supports an emotional communication. How many of you get married because of, you know, the moves that a person put on you? Their smile, the way they are so coy with you. You know, how many get caught up in the way sister walks? You know, the way a brother walks, the way he talks. You know, that body expression. Okay? Why do you think there's this whole thing of, you know, the high heels to make the body contour a certain way? Okay? Why do you dress a certain way? It's all the body image. And the whole thing is that, you know, a big source of seduction is tied into how we use and handle and package and project the body. Okay? So the thing is that if you are vulnerable to that body language, okay, and we are all vulnerable to it because, you see, mastery of the emotion must start with controlling the body language. You understand what I'm talking about? You ever seen the cliche of a sage? You know, solid, doesn't smile. You know, expression, all right? Always calm and serene. That's the, you know, a willful act of controlling, you know, the body expression, the emotion. Okay? It is the expression of the oldest part of the brain. That is why the Bible speaks about the fall of man taking place through the serpent. You see? They're talking about that part of the brain. Maybe the guys who wrote the Bible didn't understand that, but the ancient Egyptians understood that. Don't forget that, you see, you know, that chapter, if Moses wrote it, he said it in Egypt. And what he talks about just one little serpent, Nagash. The ancient Egyptians, you know, have books and books and books and books, you know, of animal-headed human beings, which we're going to clarify later on. Okay? These animal-headed human beings are nothing else but symbols of the animal influences within your brain and your spirit. And unless you understand that you have animal influences in your brain and in your spirit, you will never control your behavior. And if you don't control your behavior, somebody else is going to enslave you through the appeal to that animal within you. So you better understand those animals. And the most primitive one is the snake, the reptile. But people have been fooling me. I've even read books where people were discussing, arguing. Was there a time ever that snakes actually spoke to human beings? I mean, people actually write books like that. You know? The thing is that it's not even a metaphor. Yes, you have an actual reptile in your brain, the reticular complex. So that's, you know, so that's not even, you know, that serpent of Eden is not even a metaphor or an allegory, because you have a reptile in your brain. You have to understand that. Do you smile? Do you frown? You communicate through that. You're vulnerable to that type of language. You be saying with your words, oh, nothing is wrong, but your face is telling a different story. You understand where I'm coming from here? The fall of man is something that is taking place every day, several times a day. When you allow an emotion to dictate your behavior, to decide what you like or don't like or what you will do and will not do, okay, you are reliving that story of the fall of man in Eden. Is that clear to you? Okay. Now, above that little reticular complex, there's the mammalian brain, the limbus, called the mammalian brain. It's the midbrain. Yeah? Inside it we find the medulla oblongata that controls your breathing, which is a major key to understanding yourself and the spiritual teachings. This midbrain, this mammalian brain, governs 4 of your fundamental emotional expressions. Okay? Your urge to sexual reproduction, to mating and so on, your urge to feeding, your fighting, and your fleeing. Okay? Your fears, your urge to run away from difficulties, from obstructions, from danger. Okay? Many of us run away from things that threaten us. Or, don't confront things that threaten us. Right? As black people, there are many things that threaten us, but we don't confront them. You ever watch Wild Kingdom? One lioness, not even a lion, one lioness stalks 200, cattle. Cows and bulls and so forth. And instead of them turning on and charging that lioness and trampling to death, they run away. 5% of the population controls 85% of the will. White and black. Okay? Because, I just want you to understand, so we can wake up. Because that 5% will have poor white and poor black fighting each other. When, the majority of whites are slaves just like the majority of blacks in America. Because 5% controls 85% of the wealth. We know it, but white folks don't know that they're slaves. That's one difference. Okay? But you don't confront because, of the influence of that mammalian brain. That's why in the Bible, if you read it in the original, the Jews refer to the Gentiles as goyim, cattle. They were referring to, that expression of the midbrain, fear, flight, the flight response. If you understand that there's a cow inside your brain that allows one lioness to stampede 1,000 of you,
Okay.
you see, then your buttons are going to be pushed. Okay? The New Testament comes and instead of calling you cattle, they call you sheep. You got 12 men that are going to be your shepherds. You thought that, the good shepherd taking care of us. But that means you're sheep, though. You didn't quite understand the real symbolism inside there. So the ancients be talking that stuff through code stuff. Astrology, the zodiac. Zodiac is the root zoo, animal. Zodiac means the circle of animals, zo. Right? You see? Taurus, the bull. Pisces, the fish. And, so they're saying that you have these animals in your brain. Okay? And, man is master over animals. So unless you understand that you have these animal influences within you and master them, someone's going to master you through the animal within your being. So the purpose of this book is for you to understand yourself and grow yourself out of the animal into something higher, into what you really are. Okay? Because if you don't acknowledge something, the first step to mastering something is acknowledging it. Acknowledging that this is doing what it's doing. But they have you glorifying it. You've been writing songs, paying for songs, dancing to the music. That glorifies the expression of the animal within you. We're going to break it down as we go along.
Come on.
So you have this flight, this fear, this fleeing mechanism. Okay? You also have the fighting mechanism. When black boys are out there killing black boys, when black men are battering their black women. Okay? When Muslims are fighting Christians. Okay? When blacks are fighting whites and blacks fighting blacks and whites fighting whites, etc., etc., that's nothing else but the expression of that animal's midbrain. There are other ways of handling differences and conflict. But you will not care or think or work out or find those solutions unless you rise above that part of the brain. Unless you stamp that expression as animalistic. But you glorify with all kinds of, high-sounding expressions. Balance of power. Detente. Okay? We were just going to put 3 more steps between pushing the button. Isn't it true how white men can accept blowing up the world? Over what? Differences in ideologies that none of them live by? One thing you come to stick with each other, over what? Destroying the world, over isms that you don't even live by. That's a trip. That's the animal brain. You see? You got to call the animal an animal. You've been calling the animal a god. You've been glorifying the animal. That's why you don't understand what's going on. Okay? Then there is the urge for sex, for mating, from that midbrain. There's AIDS out there. And they're talking about condoms. Talk about, sexual education in schools. What are they saying? They don't know how to control the animal within that is driving people to have sex. That's what they're saying. And when they say that, they're saying that their behavioral institutions are all failures. Their religion, their education institutions, their psychology, their sociology has all failed them. So that is what is worse than the things that are happening. The people that have all these degrees and all these ologies and, and whatever and so forth, don't know a damn thing. But they won't admit it. They won't call time out. Talking about, don't talk about religion, other people's religion and so on, because their feelings get hurt. People are dying out here. I don't care about people's feelings. Ignorant people that don't know what they're doing. People are hurting out here. People are catching AIDS if you're not watching. Okay? I come up and I tell people you want to solve AIDS, then teach the people to have true relationships. True relationships. Solid, good relationships, right? And then have all the sex you want to have in that good relationship. Without condoms or whatever. If you are true, not to each other, but true to a higher principle.
Okay.
If you're true to the highest principle, it's not this rub, right? Not be true to each other. No, be true to the highest principle within you. Right. That will make you do right. Is it? That will make you righteous. Be righteous. Okay? If you have been messing around, go get a blood test. You're free from AIDS, then live divine truth from there on.
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? And then have all the sex you want with somebody of like mind and aspirations and commitment. That's the solution to AIDS. You might say, oh, Lord, that's a utopia. Oh, really? I can take you places in the world where, 99% of the girls were virgins before they got married. I can take you places like that right now. Okay? The parts of Africa that you call backwards and undeveloped. Okay, where people live in mud huts.
Okay.
Uncivilized. I'll take you back to those places where girls and boys are still waiting to complete their rites of passage before they can appropriate the joys of sex. Okay? I can take you to those places right now and introduce you to real psychologists and sociologists. Okay. Right. But you will not recognize it because we call them witch doctors. Now, so you have this aggressive influence in your brain, the midbrain, the beast within. Okay? And the urge to food, to feeding, to animal. It expresses itself through, pleasure, the taste of things, and so on and so forth. And when you let this instinctive creature guides you, you will eat your way into the grave.
Okay.
Okay? This government has known for several decades now that the major cause of cancer and heart disease, you know, comes on a Big Mac. Anywhere you want it. You can have your cancer and your heart disease anywhere you want it. For 99 cents. Animal fat and animal protein, but especially animal fat. But not only do they give you the hamburger, they put bacon on it and cheese. And I wonder if there is some devilish conspiracy why they push this more in the black community. Why do we find more McDonald's in the black community right next to the liquor stores than we find in the white communities? I wonder why, if there's a conspiracy here. Good question. Talking about we give you a job. You're doing a job for us. The purpose of government is to protect the public. If not, those hamburgers, you know, were a vitamin or an herb, they would have regulated it. They would have eliminated, FDA would have eliminated it off the market.
That's right.
They said, oh no, you can't have this, they will kill you. You know? But you see, nobody's forcing you to eat it, but the animal inside of you. That's the point that I want you to understand now. Because you see, you know, I like that yin-yang thing the Chinese people do, right? They say everything comes in twos. You know, you can't have an oppressor, the mind of the oppressor without the mind of the oppressed. Understand that? You just can't blame the oppressor, the mind of the oppressed. You have to also look at the mind of the oppressed. Well, that's what I'm here to talk about. Not the mind of the oppressor, but the mind of the oppressed. Because like Ho Chi Minh discovered the mind of the oppressed a long time ago. When the Americans went into Vietnam, you know, Ho Chi Minh said, oh, you're looking for the paper tiger. You know? He said, America's a paper tiger, come here. And that's exactly what happened. The power of illusion, that's all there is in the Western world, the power of illusion, the illusion of power. That's what it is. So check out the mind of the oppressed. Okay? So you have these animals in your brains that you've been following. These animals express themselves through your emotions. Look at the word animal. Animals are not the creatures that we call animals. The word animal was coined to represent the animating influences in nature. It says that which animates or gives movement, emotions, motivation. Anybody here has a motivation problem? Right? There's something in the animal that they don't know how to control and direct. That's what it means. You see? The motor, animation. Do you have an emotional problem? It's because you've been trying to communicate in the wrong manner to the animal. Go to the zoo and try to talk to lizards. Try to reason with a dog, with a cat. But that's exactly what you've been doing. You have these emotional influences within you, and how do you try to deal with it? You want to give yourself self-talk. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to stop smoking. You know, you read a book, you know, get reasons for not doing things. You're trying to reason with the animal within you. Not understanding the body language and the energies that it is working with. The animal part of your brain responsible for what you do does not speak English or Swahili or Yoruba or Arabic or Jewish language or doesn't speak any verbal language at all. Okay? You have to use a language of gestures and a language or actual words of power with it. That's how you deal with the animal within you. In Africa, people go to trance with gestures. You know, they dance. But the dance, the movements have meaning. In America, we go and we dance. We took some Americans to Ghana, you know, and they're dancing. And the Ghanaians were fascinated by the fantastic movement that our dancers make, you know. And when, you know what I mean? You know, since the dance boy, they'll be kicking out the legs and they'll be, you know, wow, you know, the Ghanaians were fantastic. But what did the movement say? Say? We didn't say this is just athletic prowess, you know. Great aesthetics, you know. Aesthetics. So we've been doing a white dance with black movements. And our drummers, you know, they'd be ripping out these movements, you know. You know, and the people, and you know, they're driving you crazy, you know. You're just moving with it, you know. And with all of the Ghanaians says fantastic, but what did the drum say? Because, you know, in Ghana, drums talk. You know, you've been sending messages all over the place with the drums. Not Morse code like actual words. You've been telling stories with the drum. You know, like, Ghanaians were like, your drummers are fantastic. Well, what did they say? Anyway. I was at a ritual in Ghana, in Nigeria once, and, you know, after the ceremony, one of the drummers started to beat. And I thought he was just beating or whatever. And the guy was talking to me and said, oh, I'm sorry. The drummer is letting me know I didn't pay him. You see, he was drumming out, you know, like, you didn't pay me, you know. You didn't pay me. I'm supposed to pay. You didn't pay me. So, you know, in African dance, you know, in Chinese dance, you know, Tai Chi and so forth, movements, you know, affect the animal brain. See, we have been stripped of the knowledge of purpose for the things that we do. Because Western culture is a purposeless culture. You know, you have names, but names don't have any meaning anymore. You know, you used to say, you know, my name is Olokun, you know, Oladumare, you know, and so forth. Okay? Even the ancient Hebrews, Jonathan, son of Yah, and so forth. But we have names, Rose, well, it's a flower, you know, and Michael, what is that? You know? Reggie, what does that mean? You know, loss of purpose. Loss of purpose and meaning. There's a reason for that.
Thank you.
There's a reason for that. So this one says that you have this animal in the brain that you don't know how to communicate with. First of all, you don't know that this is there. You don't know how to communicate with it. You know, it is influencing your behavior and you'll be talking to it, like, you know, as if it can understand verbal language. It cannot. Okay, there's a whole different technology. I said the midbrain, you know, has a structure in it called the medulla oblongata, which controls your breathing when you're not thinking of breathing. There's a whole science of breath in spiritual technology, whereby you slow down your breathing. We normally take about 18 breaths per minute on an average. Okay? When you slow your breathing to like 3 breaths per minute, 4.5 to 3 breaths per minute, and you increase the amount of oxygen coming into your being from about 500 cubic centimeters to about 2,000, okay? It affects the animal within you. You see? No amount of sermons from Preacher Man, no amount of Shakespeare, no amount of reading Freud, or reading Shekhem, you know, or reading Dr. Ben Buchanan, okay, or listening to Pat Robbins is going to help you. Because the animal inside you does not speak English. That's why you've been talking to yourself all these years. I'm going to stop smoking. Don't change. I'm going to leave Janet alone. And she comes and puts that reptile smile on you. How you doing, John? And you melt away altogether, right? Sure enough. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, well, that serpent of Eden is alive and doing well. Causing people to fall several times a day. Okay? It is through the cultivation of the breath. You know, doing certain breathing that alters your state of consciousness and throws you into a different altered state of consciousness that allows you to control that animal within you. Okay? As for the reptile brain within you, the blacks of India have a science they call the Kundalini Yoga, or the Serpent Power. The book called Serpent Power, Arthur Avalon. So get based on the yogic teachings of the tantric teachings, which is the blacks of India in the Kush. Okay? What they discovered today, the scientists discovered today, is that, the vagus nerve, the pneumogastric, okay, which is the largest nerve in your body, that is the central brain of the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, if you, push your stomach out as you breathe in, and then tighten it right, the pressure against that brain sends energy right up into the brainstem, the reticular complex. You with me? Okay? And if you chant certain words of power, it gives you control over the serpent. That's why all over the tantric tradition in Black India, okay, they exalt, you see, the mantra, the words of power approach to spiritual development. Okay? All over Egypt, ancient Egypt, they speak about the hekal, the words of power. But I want to come back and talk about that a little later. I just want you to understand that the reason that we have all of these things happening out here in the world today, especially in America, and right now I'm concerned with Black America, okay? Right. Because you're the only ones going to listen to me. Imagine me in Chinatown, or Jewtown, or Germantown. I don't think so. You're not going to listen to me. You're my people, so I'll talk to you. Okay? But this is for everybody. Okay? We gave civilization once before, we're going to try once more again. Right. Maybe this time we'll get it right. Right. Now, this animal inside of you is the failure to control it is what we define as the source of evil. So when Adam was made, so God put Adam on earth in a garden, right? And says, and charged him with what? To learn the difference between the knowledge of good and evil. So people in the world today don't know the difference between good and evil. Everything is your opinion. That's right. And what makes you feel good. Understand that? Right? The highest expression of Western intelligence is logic, the backbone of science. And the logician, the scientist will tell you, our logic has no way of establishing the truth of a premise. We have to assume that something is true and work from there on. Right. That's confusion. That is not to know the difference between good and evil. That according to you call yourself a Judeo-Christian. Right. You fail the first teachings of the Bible. Yes, sir. People walk up to me and say, Shekhem, you believe in the Bible? My answer is, do you understand the Bible? That's right. And people read, but they don't understand. That's right. You got to understand the Bible. Okay? Because there's a bunch of stuff inside you that people don't understand. I just broke down to you what the fall of man really is. Now, you know it's not something that took place some 6,000 years ago. It just happened a while ago for some of you. Okay? That serpent, got that attitude on you, and you say, oh, that chocolate cake is calling my name. You follow what I'm saying? Okay? Somebody came you, you know, and said, you know, are you going to give me that money? And you said, I don't think so. No, but you have to give me the money. You can, I don't think so. I don't think so. You have to, you need that body language to get into that emotion, you know? So that serpent is still doing the thing, you see? But they didn't break it down to you. That's why the book is not saving you. You see? Because you see, the Bible, a lot of it came out of Egypt. But the actual understanding did not come across, because what is one or two verses in the Bible is 10, 15, 20 books in Egypt. Okay, don't forget now, right? You know, if you go, you know, we got this, black people got this thing with the Jews nowadays, right? Yeah. We kind of have an antagonism going right now. Yeah. Okay? But the thing is that, you know, what you can understand about the Jews is that if you go to the Jewish, you know, people, they have libraries of books written by Jews, breaking down and analyzing and studying their religion. Right. They're just not written by the Old Testament. They have the Mishnah, the Talmud, you know, a whole bunch of books by, you know, Maimonides. They have the Sefer HaZohar, the Sefer Yetzirah. They have all kinds of books, breaking it down. We have one book, two books, the Old Testament and New Testament. The Christians have a whole bunch of books that they wrote to analyze and understand and criticize their religion. Right. Okay? They've even done a whole bunch of archaeological studies to see if the Bible is true. You know, they have the guts to question if many of these stories in the Bible is true. We get offended when somebody challenges us to understand and do scholarly thinking about the two books that we live by, the Old and New Testament. Nobody is trying to make it on just two books. Okay? That's the problem. That is the problem. I want to let you understand that before these two books were written, you had already written hundreds of thousands of books. Before there was Abraham, black people in Sumer, Shinar, had already invented the duodecimal system of cataloging books in libraries. Okay? All right now. So let's go back and recover our ageless wisdom, our heritage. Okay? I know some of you sitting on here talking about, well, it's not yet, the word is not yet established that the ancient Egyptians were black people. Let me tell you something, right? All right. Greece was about 500 BC. Now, everybody knows that the Egyptian culture was much greater and older than Greece. Right. No dispute about that. If the Egyptians were white, the white man would have claimed Egypt himself. That's right. Because that would have given him a greater antiquity and a much greater accomplishment. Okay? Okay? He would have claimed that Sumerians were white people, because the particular entertainment then would be several thousand years older. And Sumer was a much greater nation than Greece was. Okay? But in his history books, he admits there weren't Caucasians, there weren't Orientals, but nobody knows what they were. That's what it's in the history books. That's what they say in their own history books. They say he's the son of Ham, and Ham was black. You know? But he wasn't black. I don't know. He was olive skinned, they said. Okay. An olive skinned, non-Caucasian, non-Asian. Martian. Okay? So you have these ancient teachings. Okay? Now, the solution out of this problem is for us to return to ancient Egyptian teachings. For them to have survived 4,000 years as a nation, because when you look at the pyramids, and the great things of Egypt, what you think the people that were able to stay together for such a long time that they had enough peace that they could devote their time and energies to constructive things. That they could devote their, and, you know, they did not waste their time running around the world trying to subdue people and, you know, imperialistic dreams and pursuits and steal from people and destroy it. They would spend their time studying the heavens, studying man, you know, building things. Okay, they had enough social harmony to survive 4,000 years as a political entity. Okay? What enabled them to survive that long and accomplish so much that we can go to and recreate here in America today? Because that's what I want to leave with you before I leave this earth.
All right.
Okay? That is what I want to leave with you. What did they accomplish? Their accomplishment is in what is known as the Osirian religion, the religion of Osir. Not Osiris, Osir. The religion of Osir. Okay, what is Osir? Osir is nothing else but a metaphor. It was not a man. You know? So we don't play those foolish games that there was a man God in the...
That's right.
No. Osir is a metaphor. A concept.
Right.
A conceptual presentation of, you know, an aspect of God. A way to approach God. In the 4,000 years of Egyptian history, there are just different shrines and schools in Egypt, you know, developed different approaches to understanding God and man and how to grow into your, you know, divinity and so on and so forth. So each of these are a religion. So there's the Osirian religion, the religion of Ra, the religion of Ptah, the religion of Nu, okay, the religion, you know, of Seker, and so on and so forth. Okay?
Right.
Let's understand that. But the one that enabled people to achieve their divinity was the Osirian religion. You see, that is why that religion, you know, survived throughout the entire history of Egypt and became the preeminent religion of Egypt. And the essence of this religion is that the essence of man is God. The essence of man is divine.
Right.
When you read the different books of Egypt, the pyramid texts, which are the oldest books in the world, the oldest books in the world were written in the pyramids themselves, on the walls of the pyramids. You know, the the book of the so-called dead was first written in the pyramids. They call it pyramid text. Then we find the coffin texts, the papyrus and so forth that were, you know, buried with the dead and things of that nature, and other books. But throughout these books, we find that these books are personalized for individuals, women, men, queen mothers, accountants, captains, kings, people of different, who could afford it. That was the main criteria. And the Bible tried to say that the religion of Egypt was undemocratic at first. No, it was who could afford to rent a scribe. to write a personalized copy of the book for you. The only reason that we don't find, you know, a papyrus of a poor person is not because the religion was undemocratic. It was because the poor person couldn't afford a scribe and couldn't afford a pyramid or some burial structure that would survive the passage of time. But everybody, it says, identified him or herself with the divinity. You see, when you read the so-called Book of the Dead for the account of Ani, or the captain Nefer, or the queen mother Metu, you know, they all say, I, Osir Ani, great scribe of the, you know, accounts of the gods. You know, or I, Osir, queen mother Metu, you know, Nefertari. You know, I am the daughter of Nut. You know, I was in my mother's womb before earth was made, before the heavens was made, before anything was made. You know, I was. You find statements of this all over constantly throughout the Egyptian writings, meaning that man identifies himself as a divine being. The Old Testament, if you understand what you read, makes the same claim. Genesis 1:26 says, and God said, let us make man in our own likeness. When I read that, I could not keep reading. I said, what a fantastic statement. I said, what could that likeness of God be in which man is made? You know, as a little boy, I said, maybe God looks like me. He's handsome. You know, then I read on further, it says, make not graven images of God, your Lord. I said, there you go, forget that. You know? So what could the likeness, you know, so I know, so God cannot look like anything that you can see, hear, touch, smell, or whatever.
Right.
God could not be that human frailty and sinfulness. That could not, if we are sinful or whatever, that's not the likeness of God in which we're made. Okay? So we have to find out what are God's qualities. What are God's qualities? That's what the likeness in which we're made. We find that God is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. Okay? We kind of like understand that there's this omnipresence within us when we intellectually approach it by saying, you know, let us, you know, we all one, you know? We promote that, you know, that movement of oneness, you know? That is the omnipresence, one with all nature, one with each other. That's an intellectual recognition of our, you know, omnipresence. But there is a state of spiritual growth where you will actually experience your oneness with all things. Okay? The omnipotence, we kind of like intellectually approach it by, you know, admonishing each other not to accept limitations. Don't say you can't. You know? Don't admit any limitations of what you can do. Any other human being can do it and has done it, you too can do it. Okay? So that exhortation to think positive is a kind of a glimpse, is what I'm saying, in a transcendental ability to achieve within us. Of course, there are some people who have given you signs of power. You know? There are some people who have the spiritual power to affect nature. Of course, you're afraid of that because you call it voodoo. Or some other foolish person call it magic. And so on and so forth. But if man is made in the likeness of God and God works through the Spirit, that means that you were meant to work through the Spirit. And if you work through the Spirit, don't let anybody shy you away from that by calling you a voodoo worker.
All right.
What is it that Jesus was supposed to do when he was walking in water? That's voodoo. That's not natural. Multiplying fish and bread, turning water into wine. That is not a supernatural power. That's a natural power if you understand that you're made in the likeness of God. And Jesus is made to say that this is not my power. He says, and he shall do these things and even greater things. Meaning that that statement was to let you know that that ability to work through the Spirit belongs to everybody. But you see, unlike you, Jesus spent, you know, some 18 years in Egypt. He received training. You know, when Moses threw his staff down and turned into a serpent, if you believe the story. I mean, let's go on with the story for a little while here. He trained in Egypt. You know, I just want you to understand that, you see, these are all symbols. You can take them symbolically or whatever you want to take them, but the fact is that the book is trying to tell you that, you see, you've got a spiritual power. And that spiritual power that you have is what God, you see, has shared with you, you see, in making you in its own likeness. Okay? You see, you walk around defining yourself as an animal. If I say, describe yourself, you give me a description of your physical body. You say, I'm 5'6", I weigh 150 pounds, you know, I'm afraid of worms. You know, I like chocolate cake. I can't stay away from it. I don't like for people to talk loud to me. You know, you talk about your likes and dislikes, meaning your emotional expression, the animal expression. Don't forget, every emotion is animation, that which moves you towards or away from things. Okay? That comes from the animal inside of you, and don't let the animal guide you in anything. If you don't live by your feelings, all that is left for you is to live by knowledge. You either live by the feelings or you live by knowledge. You see? Of course, you will make sure that the knowledge is true. You see? So the goal is to live by truth as opposed to live by your emotions and your cravings and sensations, your sinful nature. So that is what we mean by the knowledge of good and evil. When you let your emotions guide you, then you fall into an evil trap. So the foundation of the Egyptian culture is that man is made in the likeness of God. The Zulus of South Africans call God Muntu. They call man Muntu. All other things, cats, dogs, electrons, atoms, quarks, guns, they are of the category Bintu. You see? But man and God are the only Muntu in the world because they are possessed of Ubwenge. Ubwenge is the power to use the will and the spirit to influence nature. You see? You can influence your nature, your body, your mind, your feelings, and all the people and the course of things with your will and your spirit. You don't have to use external, you're not limited to using external things to make change in the world. You have a spiritual power that you can also use to influence things in the world. If you don't have money, and you don't have guns, you don't have political power, you have a spirit. But the problem is that, you see, in America, you have been cultivating the knowledge of accountancy and laws and medicine and writing, you know, and dancing and partying and not cultivating your spirit.
Right.
You are so proud of, you know, the PhDs and the master's degrees and the bachelor's in how to use the mind, but there are no schools on how to use the spirit. What I want you to know is that, you see, for you to use your spirit, you must approach it as methodically and as systematically as you approach your education, your academic education.
Right.
In ancient Egypt, there are places where you went for that kind of training. In Nigeria, in Ghana, in Senegal, in Tibet, there are places that you can go right now and spend 7, 8, 9 years to train methodically, systematically on how to use your spirit. You see? But you don't have this here in America. You think that the problem is because, you know, children aren't listening to the parents. No, the problem is that, you see, the thing that governs your life, the spirit, is an unknown quantity. There is no institution for you to work at developing your spirit. Because you're caught up in a materialistic culture. Okay? No matter what you're doing, it is with the spirit that you're doing it, whether you understand it or acknowledge it or not. The spirit is the basis of everything that you are doing in life. Now, you're made in the likeness of God. God shares his spiritual power with you. God saves you. The minute that God makes man, God saves man by giving man spiritual power. It was your responsibility to develop that power. You must be saying, well, I don't feel too divine. Just 2 hours ago, I gave in to my emotions. I feel very human. How is it that I don't know from my experience and the experience of people around me that man is divine? You know, we take a 7-year-old child going to school, studying mathematics, how to count and do simple arithmetic. Try as you may, that child cannot grasp the abstract concepts of calculus. But nurture that child properly, physically and intellectually, that child will grow one day to master the most abstract concepts of mathematics and logic. You see? The same with a human being. Okay? Right now you don't feel too divine. You feel very human. But take you and nurture you. You know what I'm saying? Properly, physically and spiritually, and one day you too will manifest that winged. You see, you have the divine potential. You just have not cultivated that potential.
Right.
All of us come into this world with the potential to swim the English Channel, but none of us cultivate that ability. That's why we can't even run a block right now, most of us. I run a block after huffing and puffing, you know. But I have that potential to swim the English Channel, probably still do. But I will have to cultivate that potential. So nature always fills you with potentials way beyond what you're actualizing at any given moment. But you have to embark yourself in some program to cultivate and actualize that potential. So your lack of divinity is the absence of cultivation, not the absence of the essence within you. So understand that. You see? Now, so I wrote this book. Volume 2 is a step-by-step program. An initiation is nothing else but a curriculum. You want to be a lawyer? You don't just go and read a few random books and become a lawyer. You take course 1, course 2, course 3, you know, and so on and so forth. A gradual, you know, step-by-step instruction program. Okay, you want to realize your divinity? The same thing. It's a first course, a first step, a second step, a third step. You don't go from one step till you are finished, and so on and so forth. You have a tracking method, a way of knowing where you are and what kind of progress you're making. That is a curriculum. That's what an initiation system is. So this book here maps out a program for you to follow. If you do it systematically and, you know, diligently, in several years from now, it will take years. Okay, it's a little book, 300-something pages, but it takes time. But at least it is a program now.
Okay.
Okay, this month you do this, next month you do that, next month you do, and every day you know exactly what to do. And you're getting feedback at every moment. At every moment you get feedback and you know what's going on in your spirit. You know what you're saying, and you know when you're ready for the next stage, and so on and so forth. You can use this book in the privacy of your home, in a class situation, husband and wife, or by yourself in the jail. Oh yes, ma'am. I had a dream. I saw all over America the head wardens sitting at the feet of the black inmates, getting spiritual counsel. I saw that dream. From lifers even, you know. Oh yes, now. It's going to happen. Because our brothers in jail, even though they may have killed somebody and so forth, you know, they are victims of the culture.
All right now.
Victims of the culture. Because if nobody rose you up from the animal part of your being, they have no right to condemn you.
Okay. All right.
So, the foundation of religion is that man is made in the likeness of God. He didn't come from no animals, up from no apes. He came down from God. At least that's what we teach in the African religions all over Africa. Man is a divine being, comes down from God. That's what is taught in every African tradition. We never taught that thing that you come up from apes. You know? There is a part of you that may have come up from the apes. But even in the white man's language, the people who made the word human understood that human, you know, look at the prefix that modifies the root is what? That black soil. It is the earthly vessel of man. Humus, the black soil, that fertile black soil. That's what this book says, not red clay or gray clay. Black soil man. But the human is the earthly vessel of man. It is not man. You see, you don't confuse the vessel for something with the thing itself. You see, that human is, the person. The word person, per means through, and sound means sound. The word person literally means that through which a sound comes. Why would you call yourself a that through which a sound comes? I'm a person. So that's not who you are. You see? You are that which you call God. Take a drop of water. You can't sail a battleship through it. But that drop of water has the same life-giving powers as the ocean of water. Okay. That's the difference between man and God. Same quality, different quantity. But I like the way the South Africans say it. Little boy comes into the kitchen and says, Malimu, if man is Muntu and God is Muntu, they both have the same kind of spiritual power. If man says to the son, depart from your course, will the son obey man? See that man is God? So did you say, of course, if man says to the son, depart from your course, man being God, the son must obey man. Only the greater Muntu told the son, this is your place, never depart from it. So you have the same kind, not the same amount, and this is what confuses people. Because you don't have the same amount of divine power, you think you're not divine. That's the trap. You are divine. You have a spirit, but nobody has taught you how to use it. As a matter of fact, you have been persuaded away from learning how to use it. Okay. You have been made afraid from learning how to use it. Right. Don't you go around those Haitians with their voodoo? Leave that voodoo stuff alone. Yet you can go to Duke University and get a master's or a PhD in voodoo. Oh, they call it parapsychology these days. So the movie Ghostbusters, that was a parody on an actual course that teaches at Duke University and all the universities in the United States. There are hospitals in France and in England, Sussex, England. You can send your saliva on a piece of cotton to them, and they will take a pendulum and hold different homeopathic remedies in one hand, and the pendulum will gyrate the proper way once they find the remedy for you. All right? And you take the remedy and you put it on the cotton with saliva on it, and the patient 1,000 miles away will get well. They call it radionics. But when they want to learn it, they say, let's go study voodoo with the Haitians. Why do you understand those things? You have this great knowledge of spiritual power, but you are afraid to use it because they think it is Satanism. Let me tell you what Satanism is. Okay, then. Satanism is when you drop an atomic bomb, a hydrogen bomb, on defenseless people. That's Satanism. Satanism is when you kill 100 million people to bring them out of their country to grow tobacco and sugar and cotton. That's Satanism. Satanism is when you kill 100 million Chinese who want you to stop bringing opium into their country. That's Satanism. So they tell you that stuff that the foreign people and the Dahomian people in Haiti practices voodoo, because you say what happened was that Napoleon sent his crack army, his crack unit into, Haiti to put down the rebellion, and to sound the overture, sacrifice 100 black pigs. Yes, sir. And they drum and call on Ogun and Baron Samedi Right. And the French didn't know what the Dickens hit them. All I saw was some people coming with pickaxes and sticks and spears, and these guys were with guns and muskets and all kind of weaponry and cavalry, whatever, and they don't know what happened. They got whooped. So they don't want you to mess with your spiritual power. They want to. That's why Hollywood did a job on, your belief, because they don't want you to get back into this stuff, because that would be their worst nightmare come true. They did the African Americans get back into the spiritual culture. I'm telling you. Do you believe in God? You believe in God?
Yeah.
You know the majority of the people in the world don't have financial power, don't have military power.
Right.
Do you think God will forsake so many people? You have a spirit. It's greater than guns. It's greater than money. Whatever external power that you can assemble, the spirit is greater than it. If you don't believe me, ask the clerk. They had all the gold, all the guns, all that Nelson Mandela had was what was taught to him in the kosher rice was passed to him when he was a little boy in South Africa. He held on to it. He held on to that spiritual teaching. And with that, he defeated them. Understand that? Okay? The time is about time. And the time is here. The eve of that night is here again. The time is here. No man can stop it. No man can stop it. Greater than me is greater than you. It's God's work. But people who don't understand about God, they try to stop things that are divine. What a foolish thing. Now, but how do we get from this human, impotent, nescient, ignorant, selfish state to realizing our divinity? We have an initiation system. In essence, it's a system by which we, don't give you information, because don't forget, the animal that controls you does not understand language, so you need a different approach. That's the foundation. That is why there are people with an IQ of, 180.
That's right.
Or you can have 1,000, break the scale, and still do drugs.
That's right.
Okay?
Right.
Your salvation is not in Western education. The Nazi Germans were one of the best educated people in the world. The white people who enslaved us were one of the best educated people in the world. Okay? It wasn't no robbers and enslaved us. It was a well-educated priest by the name of Casas who wrote the proposal, sent it to the Pope. The Pope read it, fitted it, and put this bow on it and said, yes, enslave the Africans. So our enslavement came from the highest level of education. Western education will not make a better human being out of you. As a matter of fact, our problem is well-educated Uncle Tom setting us out. I mean, education is good. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm a well-educated person myself. Okay? I'm simply saying to you is that there is something higher than that.
Come on.
Okay? Something more important than that. And that is your spirituality. Your God presence.
That's right.
You see, when you take God out of education, God out of science, God out of, everywhere, then you lose your way completely. Completely.
That's what they did.
Okay? Yeah, this is what keep me going now. Stay here, boy. I'm bouncing off him now, Keep it up, Robert. Yeah. Hey, Sure enough. So the first stage is for you to stop identifying yourself with your person. The first stage of initiation. for you to stop identifying yourself with the person and begin to identify with the God that dwells within you, the God who you are. See, God right now is within each and every one of us, but in the background part of our life. What is it that keeps the criminal alive? God's presence. But you don't see that God's presence in the actions of the criminal. Because that God is in the background. You see? When you see a God in a person, it's because that God, you see, has left the background and come into the foreground of the person's life. You see? So God within you is running your physiological machinery. You eat an apple, you eat steak, you eat potatoes, that God inside of you directs the process of transforming the things you eat into your own flesh, blood, hair, skin, and so on and so on. That's magic, that's voodoo. That's beyond biochemistry. You know, you try to study how it goes from apple to skin, and biochemistry stops 10% of the way. The other 9% of the way is explained only to the voodoo. It's magic. You know, ask any scientist. They say, we don't really know much about that stuff. You know, they say, but there's no God in bio. You ever take a chemistry course? And say, okay, let's talk about God now. They don't do that, right? That's the problem. Now, you see, so God is at the center of your being, directing your physiological processes, your subconscious mind. Okay? That possesses the knowledge of the universe, you see? How to take food and transform it into your flesh, grow you from baby, whatever, how to take the seed and the egg and 9 months, here comes the baby. That's God working in the center of your being. God is right there.
That's right.
But you have not taught to acknowledge God's presence at the center of your being. You see? You say, I believe in God, but you know, you honestly, sincerely believe in God, but because you have not been taught the real way to believe in God, you disavow God. You ever walk around and there's nobody, and you say, gee, I'm afraid because I'm all alone. How can you be alone? Isn't God there? Huh?
I don't think like that.
You don't think like that.
There you go.
Right?
I'm alone.
I'm alone, right? But isn't therefore when you say I'm alone, if you say I believe in God,
There you go.
right? And you say, but I'm all alone, aren't you now, you know, betraying that you don't really know how to believe in God?
Okay. Yeah.
Oops, there it is. That's when we're breaking into the house in the neighborhood. Said, I gotta get me a gun. Because if I don't get me a gun, ain't nobody going to protect me. Oops. So you have to begin to, to learn how to, reestablish your identification with God. As not just simply as within you, but dwelling in you as your true self.
That's right, brother.
You see? You've been saying that which I am is that which likes this and doesn't like that, is afraid of that, and so forth. As opposed to that intelligence that knows that has the secrets of the universe, that is guiding digestion of my food, keeping me healthy, right? So you have a great intelligence doing those things for you. And that is what you're supposed to be identifying with. And in Egyptian symbolism, in the Egyptian religion, that great intelligence is in your subconscious. We metaphorize it as God's dead at the bottom of the Nile River. You see? That has to be resurrected by Heru. You see, I mean that the whole practice in God religion is for you to bring the God within you into the foreground of your life. So that great intelligence can then guide your career, your marriage, your liberation, see, you're keeping God in the background while you're trying to run your life with your little human brain. So the first stage is one in which you go through a trance process of cultivating remorse, sorrow for everything that you do wrong against God within you, the God which you truly are. So you go through several months of training yourself to express sorrow. Okay? And in the book, we give you 10 categories on which you will discover, what is it that you do to, to sin against the God within you. Some of the 10 commandments, but it's not quite the same thing. Those 10 categories are the 10 spirits of the tree of life. And when Moses gave the word of 10 commandments, he was trying to do a tree of life thing, but they had to keep it quiet because they didn't want to slack of the polytheistic Canaanite religion or Kemetic religion. Therefore, they messed it up, The second stage of initiation is for you to reset your entire belief system.
Right.
Okay? All your life you go through with beliefs that are the natural outgrowth of your identification with yourself as a human being. So you identify with the human part of your being. Okay? So once you, through the first stage of initiation, re-identify yourself with your divine self, you must then change your belief, your way of thinking and talking, you see, to be in harmony with your identity as a divine being. You see? If you think that you're a human being, and you feel a sudden pain and malaise, you say, gee, I'm getting sick. I gotta run see a doctor, maybe I'm dying. Ooh. Okay? That's the way you think if you identify with a human. But if you identify with the divine part of your being, you get that same pain and that malaise, you say, oh, the body is not well, or trying to tell me something. Let me command the spirit to heal the body. It's a difference now. And you walk around with an expectation to feel better, you see, with each passing second. Right? If you identify with the human and you get that pain, you walk around expecting for things to get worse. Right? You walk around with this fear and this image of things getting worse and worse, and with each recursive pain, oh Lord, you say, Lord, help me. As if, the divine is outside and away from you.
That's right.
No, the divine is within you. So that was the trick that they played upon you. Somebody told you that God is out there, outside of you. Okay? Heaven, it's a heaven. And like somebody said last night is that, how you going to get to heaven? You can't afford to get on a plane. And if heaven is out in outer space, even worse so, because they're not going to let you get on that spaceship, you know what I mean? You can black and everything, forget it. So this one to understand is that, no, the divine is within you. The divine is you. You see? But you have to go through a training process of reshaping your belief system to reflect. I'm not talking about a course in positive thinking. I'm talking about, a course in having your thoughts and your beliefs reflect your identity as a divine being. If you think that you are an animal and a sinner by nature, you're going to be an animal and a sinner who thinks positively as you did according to what you're thinking. No, you have to start with your self-image. Who are you? Are you an animal, a human, a mineral, or a god? What are you? If you don't think you're God, then go to Genesis 1:26, tear it out and throw it away. If you don't think that you are a divine being and you call yourself a Christian, then that part where Jesus said, and ye shall do all these things and greater things even, go tear that thing out of the Bible and throw it away. The problem is the Bible told you, but didn't give you the training. You have to have gone to Egypt for that, like Jesus did. But since you can't afford to go to Egypt, Egypt has come to you. initiation. And each of these stages might take like 9, 12 months, 18 months. Yeah? You do certain exercise for 21 days, starting the new moon for 21 days without missing a day. Okay? You rest 8, 10 days, start again the next new moon, 21 days, consecutively do this meditation. All right? Then the third stage of initiation, you know, you have to train your spirit to experience joy. The joy of living as God. See, all your experience of joy is tied up in the things that thrill you emotionally and sensibly. You see, you know how to feel joy as a mother, father. You know feel joy when you get a car. You know when you have a thrilling experience with a woman or a man, or something of that nature. But how to experience joy in living by divine law? How to experience joy when you do something based on truth? Like the truth is that, you know, bread without butter is good for my health.
Okay.
The truth is that saltless food is good for my health.
Okay, now, break it down.
You know how to experience joy over, you know, that barbecue sauce, you know, dripping. You know, experience joy for that. You with it? Okay? But how to experience joy by living by truth? You have to retrain yourself and really and truly and genuinely enjoy it. It said God lives by divine law. In this book here, volume 2, I give you an account of the creation story. I give you a passage from, and I analyze it, break it down for you, out of the book, one of the oldest books in the world called the Book of Knowing the Transformations of Ra and of Defeating OPEC. Okay? In that book of creation, God said, before the first day, before there was earth, before there was heaven, I was all alone. Not was there another one who worked with me in place back. I caused my name to come into my mouth. And I came into being as being.
All right.
And I, you see, created the things of this world. Okay? And before there was heaven, before there was earth, I made a foundation in the law. And on the basis of that law, made the things in the world. You see, Genesis starts off with God making heaven and making earth and so on and so forth. Okay? In ancient Egypt, the Christian story starts off with God making the law first. You see? And then God said that it lived by the divine law. You see? And if man is made in the likeness of God, man is supposed to live by divine law and not by his emotions and sensual cravings. That's the foundation difference, you see? So to live by divine law, to be the likeness of God, is just like to say that I have divine power. To say that I am divine means that I live by divine law. You see? And you have to learn to feel joy by living by divine law. Just not simply by living by what titillates your emotions and your sensations and so on and so forth. So that's a very important part of your initiation. Then comes the training of the will, stage 4 of initiation. Okay? In that stage, you learn to use your will, which is the free part of your being. Many people actually don't have a will. They get an impulse, emotional, a sensual impulse to do something, and they follow that. This is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is what I prefer, this is what makes me feel good, and they follow that. Many people look towards the emotion to validate their actions. If I don't feel it, I can't do it because then I think I'm being a hypocrite. You know, you say the animal is what's going to validate my actions. Right? Now, if you know something is true, then do it. Don't bother about how you feel about it. You know, I counsel couples, you know, and they come to me, they have problems in a relationship, and I'm still on counseling them. And, you know, and I, you know, enlighten things, and then the sister might say, gee, okay, I guess I was wrong. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. And she's really sorry, right? And I said, fine, you can kiss and make up now. The body's still tense. Right. Paralyzed by the animal, But I can't kiss you right now because I don't feel like kissing you. See? In other words, feelings, the emotion is what tells you that your actions are honest. That's a trap. That's false. Truth has nothing to do with how you feel. If you transcended any bad habit, if you gave up alcohol or tobacco, marijuana, or chasing after women like crazy, you know that while the emotions were telling you, do it, that's what you felt like doing. The only way you overcame and grew is when you followed the truth that made you go in the other direction. So truth is opposite to feelings. So you have to understand about your will. Your will is based upon truth. You see? This freedom is the main, evidence of your divinity. In the book of Knowing the Transformation of the Rod, the Egyptian creation story, okay, it is said, God again says, before there was heaven, before there was earth, not was there another one who worked with me, I was all alone. Which shows you that Egyptian religion is monotheistic. God is saying, Nefer, the Lord of all is saying, I was alone. There was not another with me in that place.
Okay.
I brought my name into my mouth. That is a word of power. And I came into being as the creator. And I came into being as the things that I made in the world. That's one of the most fantastic statements ever made in the whole history of mankind. The Egyptians saying that God is saying that God was alone. And God came into being as the things that it made in the world. You see? Because we have to understand, why did God, we have to ask the question, why did God make the world? And, those are questions that you can't ask in Western theology. Because there's nothing there to explain it. But in African theology, you see, God makes the world because before God makes the world, God is alone. So God has an experience. God is all alone. There are no thoughts. There's no second, no one to talk to, and so on. God is all alone. Okay? So for God to have experience, God has to differentiate its own substance into the things of the world and then dwell in those things, and then as those things have experience. And of the many things that God makes in and as the world, God makes one creature through which God can come into the world and say, I am that which made the world. And that creature is man. You see? But that is the man who has, you see, done the work to realize his or her divinity. It is that man that has perfected and completed the spiritual development. You see? So, the essence of your divinity is the freedom of your will. You have to realize that you have this will that is free. No emotion ever compels you to do anything. You don't understand this about the emotions. You think that emotions are compulsive forces. They're just simply impelling you. When emotions become compulsive, then you're crazy. Then you're insane, Insanity is emotional compulsion. If you're not insane, then emotions might be pushing hard. They might be pulling hard. Fine, sister walk by and dragging you over there. But it's not compelling you, brothers. No? Talk that talk. That chocolate cake, Lord, is calling me. It has my name on it. It's calling me. No. So you got to understand that you have this freedom, and that freedom is the essence of your divinity. That's why, because many of you don't understand that free will. And the Western man all men have misunderstood this free will word. He has confused the freedom to disobey God's law, you see, with the right to disobey God's law. You have the freedom, but not the right to. And we're going to talk about God's law last. You see? Next comes, the next decision is about justice. You see? You learn now how to develop that strength and that power, not to rise and hold on to your position in life at the expense of others. You see, we can find ourselves in so many compromising positions. You see, we might be tempted to hold on to our position, our place, and to gain at the expense of somebody. We thought invested $100,000 in this gizmo. Then it turns out that the FDA discovered that this gizmo is harmful to people, but has not yet banished it. You say, well, at least till I make my $100,000 back, I'll keep selling it. No, you have to take the loss. It's harmful to people, give it up. Okay? All these folks out there walking and talking about has not been proven that tobacco does harm to anybody. You know, it's like, oh, you know how many charges will cost if we gave up the tobacco industry? I mean, come on now. You know something is wrong, then give it up. When you find the courage, you see, to live truth, you see, to take a loss, you see, so you do not hold on to your position or grow by somebody's expense, then you are giving justice to others. And as long as you give justice to others, God will come back and be your just defender. Because you know the law, as you sow, there you go. You want divine justice and protection, black people. We need divine justice and protection. So once enough of us, you know, initiate ourselves to that position, we will become the vessels for just compensation for ourselves in America. There's the power and the spirit to do it. Then comes the last stage in the initiation, the sixth stage, the Ma'at stage. Ma'at is the divine law, truth. Man asked me once, how do you know truth? People are confused about truth. People know what truth is. Well, you know, Ma'at is truth. Divine law is truth. What is divine law? Divine law is, you know, the evidence of the natural relationship, interdependence, you know, between things. But you have to understand God. You have to put God in the midst of your truth system. See, God is the creator of the things of this world. And you know when you make something, you have in mind what that thing is for and where and how it's going to be used. You just don't make a screwdriver and say, I wonder what I can do with it. You have the screw in mind. Or you make a screwdriver. Correct? Right. When God makes the duck, it has water in mind as the environment. And the fish is going to eat in mind.
That's right.
You see? Otherwise, you know, the feathers will not repel water and the duck will drown. You know, the duck will be vegetarian and can't eat the fish. So God has all of those things in mind when he makes the duck. So divine law is you understanding that you live in a world where there's a natural relationship between all things. A natural interdependence between all things. And living truth is, you know, respecting that natural relationship, interdependence between things. They can start to use things for the purpose that they were made. We come back to this thing about diet, for example. If you weren't meant to eat meat, and I'm saying this to you because, you see, for you to find the amount of energy, spiritual power, we're talking about power here now. We're just not talking about, you know, walking around with information to pass on to other people. I'm talking about the power that you sit down somewhere in the mountains and you chant the words of power And the United Nations changed its mind.
Okay.
The judges changed their mind. The president changes his mind. Or her mind one day. You know. I think the black woman's going to be up there president one day. You got the power now. You have that power now. I'm talking about initiation about divine power, growing into divine power. Okay? And you're not going to get that power devitalizing yourself with eating meat. Okay? You're not going to get to that power because, you see, you will not solve the truth puzzle of the Ma'at stage of initiation. Ma'at is, you've got to know the natural relationship between things. Okay? If God meant for you to eat meat like all meat-eating creatures, you will eat it raw. You will have a craving for raw meat. You will enjoy raw meat. You will be able to eat raw meat and not worry about salmonella infection. You think a lion is worried about salmonella infection? You ever seen cats eat rats? They play with it. You know, and then they walk around in his mouth, right? And that rat is quivering in his mouth, right? You will enjoy doing that too if you were a meat eater. You go walking around the streets, you know, with this rat in your mouth, you know. All right, Joe. Natural relationship. You know, your teeth. If you are a meat eater, you have fangs. You know, fangs was for meat eaters, you see? You don't have fangs because you're not naturally equipped to deal with it. You don't have a craving, a taste for raw meat. Most of you can't even kill an animal. Talk about these sisters can cook. Sure you can. You take that meat, you put, help me now, tomato, black pepper, onions, garlic, paprika, bell peppers, thyme, everything to make that meat taste like a vegetable. You know, you better cook that meat good, otherwise it'll make you sick. That's a violation of the revelation of the natural order that you're violating here. Okay? And we have that problem in all kinds of areas. You know, men going to bed with men, women with women. You know, love is seeking nothing, giving, seeking nothing in return. Love is selfless behavior. It has something to do with kissing and caressing and carousing. You see, a man can give to another man seeking nothing in return. That's love. A woman can give to a woman seeking nothing in return. That's love. But kissing and caressing, that's not love. That's sensualism. You see, when we get down to that, then now, you know, man was made for the woman for the man, and not the other way around. So you got to understand the natural order and interdependence and relationship between things. Because if you once you complete the 6th stage of initiation, meaning the understanding of divine law, meaning understanding of the natural order, then you qualify to gain access into the full powers of the Spirit. Because God will not give you access to the powers of the Spirit if you don't understand the natural order of things. Because then you will get that power and you'll mess the order up. Plain and simple. So this is the initiation process. Okay? Once you get there, now you have that spiritual power. Then you have the intuition, you become a prophet. Okay? And then you become Oser. You experience your oneness with all things in the world. And then beyond that, you attain to the highest experience in life, which is, you know, a return to your original state of being. That original state of being, the yogis call that, you know, asam prajnata sarvikalpa nirvana. Asam prajnata means, you know, without knowledge, prajna, without things of knowledge. There's nothing for you to perceive and know and so on and so forth, right? Sarvikalpa is without time and divisions. And nirvana means not going. meaning that it's a state in which you are at total peace and nothingness. Yeah, the highest form of samadhi. But we don't have to go to the Hindus to know these things, because we have these teachings in our African tradition. Okay? That nothingness, we taught it, 1,000 years before the Hindus as the god Atem. But understand, if God makes man his own likeness, then what Atem represents as God or represents as man. Atem is something else for the everyday Egyptian word for nothing. In everyday speech in ancient Egypt, you said it's nothing by Atem. Did you do it 10? No. What's the matter? Atem, nothing. Okay? So to express that attribute of God, God's original essential state of being is undifferentiated energy matter. You see, for all things to come out of God's substance, that substance had to be originally undifferentiated, meaning no things. There were no things originally there. Its essential state is one of no thingness. When you walk around saying, essentially, I'm afraid of this, I don't like that, I am this way, don't try to change me, you are denying your original divine state of being, which is no things, an unconditioned state of being. You with me? Yeah. And that knowledge was, condensed in the image of Atem. The Europeans who didn't understand this thought that Atem was a god of Egypt. No, it is nothing else but a common, everyday noun. No thing. You see, to represent an attribute of God. A common noun elevated to a, proper noun. Not the name of a god, but you see the description of an attribute of God. With me? Yeah. And since there are no things in the original energy matter of God, you see, then that aspect of God is hidden. And the everyday common word for that which is hidden in Egypt is Amen. Right. Or Amen, the way, Christians and Muslims end their prayer. Yeah. And Amen, Amen, Amen. You see? But it just means not so be it, it means that which is hidden. As the highest expression of God's consciousness. But then now, if man is made in the likeness of God, you are not that atom molecular 5'8", 160 pounds, that emotion expression that likes this and is crazy about that and is afraid of the other. You're not that, because you can see, you can feel those things. You see? You're not your mind, what you believe. You are no thing that can be seen. You are hidden. You are Amen. If you spent enough time reading the original Egyptian text itself, you'd have read thousands of books where people say, I am Amen. I am Atem. So you're not falling into the foolish error of European Egyptologists who said that Amen was the god of Thebes. They say Atem was the god of Heliopolis, or Anu. You see, and Thebes, the Theban god, was, Amen. You see? And then over there in Memphis, in the Nefer, the god was Ptah. Ptah means to fashion, to shape. You see, so God is that which fashioned and shaped the things in the world. So since, the town, the city of Edfu was a blacksmith town, fashioners, you know what I'm saying? They metaphorized or conceptualized their God as a fashioner, that which fashioned the world. You see, so they refer to God as Ptah, meaning the fashioner. Okay. That's not a God or the name of a God, but a description of what God does. So you are the fashioner of the things that happen to your life. So if you don't like your life, then refashion it. Repapa it. Because you are a fashioner. You have to start identifying with the lower part of your being and come up to the highest part of your being, but it's a method and system to do it. You see? And the generic name for God in Egypt is Nefer. That's the word that Nefer, not Necher. Okay, Nefer. And Tau are. Not that Shema, Necher, like some Israelis want to say, it's Nefer, Tau. Okay? Check it out. Go get the Apple here with it, because some people are trying to say it's a Shema, a Necher, it's a Tau. It is the source of the Latin natura, natural, force of nature. Okay? Because the plural of Neter is Neteru. Okay? But you see, Neter, you know, the hieroglyph on Neter. Egyptologists have for years been saying they don't know what it is. They have spent so thousands of books trying to talk about what is this thing represent. Okay? When you understand that all the so-called gods are not gods but aspects of the one supreme being, adjectives and common nouns elevated to the status of proper nouns to describe attributes of God. Amen Ra is not a composite God or a assimilation or a fusion of God. Amen is that which is hidden. Ra is not the sun God. The sun is Aten, A-T-E-N. Ra Ra has a similar meaning to what you mean by energy in physics. It is that hidden capacity to do work. The word tool in Egypt is a rot. So that which does the work is a rot. And the work itself is Ra. You with me? Okay? Ra is that dynamic manifestation of God. You see, when God is not creating, God is Atem, meaning no thing. Okay? God is Amen, hidden. You see? And a substance and energy matter, God is Nu. Nu in Egypt is water, a pool of water. Why? Because God's substance can be likened to water. Because out of water, you see, all things and all living things have their being and life in water. You see, water is universal solvent. Okay? And water has no shape of its own. So it is the infinite potential to assume any form, any shape. So Nu, or just simply a pool of water, becomes a symbol for God, for God's attribute as the energy, matter, substance, source of all things. Okay? Don't forget, you're the likeness of God. We're talking about your spirit. You can be whatever you want to be as long as you stop defining, meaning delimiting yourself by saying, I can't do this, I prefer this, I don't like that, I am this, I was born to that. Once you stop defining yourself that way, walking around proudly, I'm a Scorpio, what are you? You know? You see, you limit yourself that way. You know, there might be a scorpion inside of you. Because yes, we know the animals in our brains, you know, there might be a scorpion influencing you. There might be bull influencing you, but that's not who you are. What the difference?
All right.
Okay? So you have Amen, Ra. You know, you never hear, you can't hear sound. Sound is a movement. What you hear is the molecules being moved by that movement.
That's right.
The colliding of the molecules, if all I'm saying, from that movement is what you hear, not sound, because sound itself, you can't hear it. Light itself is not visible. What you see is the behavior of molecules excited by that movement.
Okay.
Think about it now, right? Life itself you never see. What you see are the life forms. So when the great black philosophers in Thebes, 3,000 years ago, you see, were sitting down pondering these realities, they said, damn, man, you know, we are that hidden life, expressing itself through the life form, the human. But who we are itself is hidden. We are Amen Ra. That's why in many of the writings of Egypt you find many books where the person says, I, Merian Eb, am Amen Ra. If I'm a woman or a man, I define him or herself as Amen Ra. See, Amen Ra is not another God assimilating the powers of each other, whatever. It is a grand philosophical understanding that life is hidden. You see? But when people come to study Egypt with racial prejudices, with games to play, and perhaps an ethnic incapacity to understand the way the black man thinks. Because we think so poetically, you know? You know? The way we walk when we put on clothes like this, we be so fine. We can't call these clothes. They got to be fine because he's a swing. You know what I'm saying? We be swinging. Right? He's a vine. You know? We're so poetical, you know? That's the same, you know, way of talking, you know? So the thing is that this symbol, once you understand it, that the different so-called names of gods are not names of gods or different gods, but it's the metaphors for the different aspects of God, because God itself is nothing that you can encompass in a name. You yourself cannot be encompassed with a name. You see? Imagine if you were with your eyes up against a wall. All the way up against the wall, looking through a hole. You see what's on the other side of the wall, but never see you, the seer.
Okay.
You are that hidden consciousness, which is conscious of the world, but nothing can perceive you. You see? That is why, to this day, the intelligence have not found a single object in the world that answers for the hieroglyph for Nefer. The same way the Jews have the presence of mind to say, make not graven images of God. The ancient Egyptians had the presence of mind to say, the hieroglyph of God shall represent nothing in this world that we can identify with. And my brothers and sisters, this hieroglyph here represents you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we've got a few announcements to make. First of all, for those of you all who, for those of you all who have questions, at this time we'll Shekhem will take questions. You want to do it from there?
Yes, sir. Speak to everybody, please, right?
In the science of the Egyptian studies, what are the differences or the parallels to like what the Yorubas, Egyptians, in terms of how they view the conscious attributes of the Creator?
Yes, the brother wants to know about similarities and differences between the Kemetic and Yoruba, you know, culture, concepts about the Creator and so on. The Yoruba tradition is one of the traditions for which you can make almost one-to-one parallel to the ancient Egyptian tradition. Okay, you find that they're not gods, because you didn't worship gods. The so-called gods of Egypt are attributes of the one supreme being, and they're attributes of your spirit. Okay? And to study the divine attributes of the spirit from a Yoruba or Kemetic perspective is to learn what Freud and Jung and these people try to explain as the subconscious mind without success. Okay? But you'll find, for example, that the principles, you say, the Neferus, these are called deities, which are not really deities, of Egypt, you can make one-to-one correspondences. Take, for example, this painting here, this hawk-headed human being, representing a hawkishness within people. You know, that which drives us to war and athletics and things of that nature, okay, is Rukuhuti in the Catholic tradition. It is Ogun in the Yoruba. And you can study the patakis of the Yoruba on the Ogun and study the stories of Rukuhuti and see parallels inside here. Even in the rituals of getting to discover and that principle within your being. Okay? We have here a jackal-headed human being. Don't forget the part of the brain that has these animal influences, right? Okay? When the white man came and saw our statues and paintings like this, and they saw us meditating in front of them, they thought that we were worshiping animals. No, we're meditating on the animal influences within us. If you don't understand the animal within you, that animal will control you. And others will control you through that animal as well. Because nobody can enslave you with guns and money. They may conquer you for a time. They might hold you down for a time, but they cannot hold on to you indefinitely unless they keep you enslaved to that animal within your being. When they came, you see, this is a book. This is a book. You see, this hawk, you put a hawk head on a human being. That's a metaphor, it's a poem. You see, you know, and it has this, you know, this goat, you know, horn on the head, and it has these bundles wrapped up, you know, and the colors and everything, and this, you know, all of these things are telling your story. You see, we have a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere in the brain. Okay, the two other brains that we have. Okay, the left hemisphere thinks verbally. So when we read a book, you see, with words on it, we're communicating information through the left side of the brain. Okay? If we read a book that gives a message in pictures, then we pass information to the right side of the brain. So these were not idols that we worship, these were books that we were reflecting on. You see, you can have a book with words or with sculptures or paintings. Okay? So all around the room you find that you have these creatures, animal-headed deities or other so-called deities without, you know, like Hesp, which is Oshun. So you can have one over here in the yellow and green, you know, with a little flower that you're smelling, you know, and yeah, and so on and so forth, you know, and we have, of course, you see the conch shell and the blue, you know, that's Yemaya up there, and, or Set. All right, so you can make one-to-one correspondence between the Kemetic and the Yoruba in terms of the understanding of the deities. The differences is in our ritual approach to these things. You follow what I'm saying? And of course, in Egypt, we tie these things hierarchically to the tree of life. Okay, and that will only be due to the fact that Egypt, you know, was able to study this for 4,000 years and transmit information, so they got it very tightly. You with me? Okay? But basically, there are great similarities between the traditions. Yes, sir.
I want to ask, I looked in your book for the concept of karma, and I didn't see where you talk much about karma. Also, the second question is whether or not, did you study Metu Nefer, the language, the Kemetic language, and if so, how did you come by that?
Okay. Karma must be understood in two perspectives. Okay? Their karma, properly understood, is the law of cause and effect. All right? And but it is misused by the Vedantic Brahmins, okay, as a racist tool.
Yes.
Okay? In other words, you know, if a black person in India, says, how come I'm pious and I follow the Shastras, the teaching and so forth, and a white man who is, a rolling stone, has a higher social position than I do? The answer would be that's your karma. You with me? Okay, you were a sinner in a past life, so therefore, lowly status this lifetime, and so on and so forth. So that form of karma you got to discard. Now the law of cause and effect is a linear system. Don't forget that, Hinduism is a hybrid religion that came into being when the Aryans, the Germanic people, invaded India about 1900 BC and superimposed Western thinking on the black thinking of India. So the doctrine of karma is linear. Cause, effect. Listen, black thinking is circular. From the center to every point on the circumference, meaning that, we do not, accept the idea that there's a one-to-one cause and effect in the world. Things happen synchronistically. The word is synchronous. There's always many things interacting with each other, and so on and so forth, okay? So there are no simplistic answers to things like one cause into one effect. There are many, things that are interacting with each other as opposed to cause and effect. Okay? For example, in cause and effect, there's a past and a future. Okay? We're going back to the past because everything is circular movement. Okay? So that's why we don't, do the cause and effect thing. Karma. Questions?
Yeah.
This side of the room. Yes, sir.
I want to ask.
Speak to the gentleman all the way in the back, please. Thank you.
I want to ask you to explain what's the purpose of the pyramid, if any purpose.
What's the purpose of the pyramids, if any purpose? Okay? The pyramids have a main purpose. Okay? And that was a grand monument to our ancestors. An essential part of African religious life is, acknowledging the ancestors. The black people have discovered and developed the science of altered consciousness in the trance state. Okay? When you perfect the state of trance, you are able to communicate with those people who are considered dead. Okay? Meaning that when you die, you lose your physical body, you lose your animal spirit, but there are other higher parts of your spirit that you survive in. And if those on earth, have perfected the meditation, they can communicate with you. Okay? So at some point in the history of the black man, they were able to communicate with people who had passed on. Now, the greatest value of that experience is that you receive first-hand empirical evidence that man is eternal and immortal. That's a mind-blowing experience. Okay? That changes the whole ball game. Now you have empirical evidence that, life is just not a one-time thing. Now a lot of problems are solved for you. Now you know that the little child the 3-year-old child that died, that got killed, that was not destined, that child has been here before, okay, and will be here again. And that experience fits into that continuum of experiences. You with me? Otherwise, if we only live one lifetime, how do we explain, how do we resolve God's nature with the fact that, baby just born and dies? You with me? How do we resolve the fact that a good person, never hurt anybody, is mercilessly killed by somebody else?
That's right.
But once you understand that life is immortal, then this person who is, senselessly, quote, senselessly and mercilessly killed and did nothing wrong but good to others, that person has been here so many times before and will be here again. And that experience fits into that larger picture of that person's incarnation experience. You with me? Okay? Now, so you discover life, man's life is immortal, eternal. Who you on living now. Then what's the purpose of living? Then you find the purpose of living, you come to earth to develop yourself spiritually into a spirit being. You don't come to earth to be on earth, but to develop yourself spiritually. So now the reason for being on earth, you see, has its real meaning. Okay? So what happens then is that, you know, as a contribution, as a monument to that reality, you build these fantastic monuments to the ancestors. You see, the pyramids and the shrines to the dead in Egypt, okay, were greater than the palaces of the kings. You talk about the pyramids, man, you should go see, you know, the Valley of the Kings, where they carved cemeteries inside the mountains themselves. They built cities worth of cemeteries inside the mountains themselves. You know what I'm talking about? Okay? And this is, you know what? The pyramid is called the House of Eternity. Is it? Why? Because they're trying to, you know, physically capture the eternity of the soul. Now, once they built the pyramid, they applied it to other purposes as well, such as to use it as a vehicle for preserving and transmitting their scientific knowledge. Okay? You understand? So what happens, and of course there's the shape of it, about the pyramid power thing, and some people came and got caught up with that kind of thing. Oh, look, in the pyramids there's pie. Fine, so there's pie in the pyramid, you know. But it's, you know, and so when they sent the thing to the moon, they thought that the Egyptians' pie was off by a few seconds, right? And when the first time they overshot the moon, and they corrected it, you know, they discovered the Egyptian pie was exact. Okay? All right? The pie that they use in NASA is not the same pie you use in your school books. It's the same pie they use in the pyramid. Okay, so you have all these measurements inside the pyramid. You know, but the white people, they get all caught up in that, you know? What we are caught up in is in the ancestors, the fact that the burial chamber to the ancestors. When I go back to that pyramid in my astral body, I'm not interested in, you know, the mathematical knowledge. I want to talk to Ptah and Metu. I want to talk to the Metu. I want to talk to Amish Nefertari, to Pianki. You know what I'm talking about? You see, those are what I want to do in the pyramid, and that's what the pyramids are really for. People went into it to have meditation and conversations with the ancestors. In Kumasi, they don't have a pyramid, but they have a mausoleum, the royal mausoleum that serves the same purpose. You see, once a year on the Great Akwesi Day, that's the 9th sun, every 40 days, every 40 Sundays, they come and they have a great ceremony to the ancestors. On the 9th Sunday, the 9th Akwesi Day, you see, of the year, you know, the king of the Ashantis, king over 28 other kings, he goes to the mausoleum. He also dressed in mourning cloth. And yeah, with his priests and queen mothers and so forth, and the high priests and priestesses go, and they go to trance and hold conversation with the spirits of the dead kings and queen mothers. And get the reading for the year. You know, get insight into what to do and how to preserve the nation and so on and so forth. And they come back with guidance from the dead ancestors, the great, you know, deceased kings and queen mothers give them counsel. Yes, sir? And that mausoleum, they have the remains of all the dead kings and queen mothers in that royal house. So if you ever go to Kumasi and you're going to the Botonchwe Lake as a tourist, and they show you, there's the mausoleum. Don't take the picture. I'm warning you. Don't photograph the building. You'll have problems in your life. Question?
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank you for bringing us pleasure and honor. I got two questions. The first one, the concept of abstaining from sexual intercourse in attaining perfection. The second question is dealing with the androgynous nature of man and female.
You didn't ask your question yet. You just gave me the theme for your question. No, ask your question. No, ask your question. What is your question?
The question is...
You gave me a broad category.
Okay, the question is, what is the truth behind abstaining from sexual intercourse and attaining for reaching perfection? All right. Again, what is this whole concept of man? When the Creator created man, He created him androgynous, being man and female.
Very good.
All right.
Oh, now we can manage.
All right.
There must be many celibate men in the world, you know? Mm-hmm. But none of them have, or no man that we know in history, have been able to credit his great works from being celibate. I mean, you know, as a matter of fact, you know, all the great men in the world, okay? All the great men in the world, you know, were fathers, husbands, had children, and so on and so forth. Okay? So celibacy, you know, as a condition for spiritual development or achievement of perfection is somebody misguided thing. You with me? And the Catholic Church needs to give some slack to those brothers. So they can stop leaving little boys alone.
Yeah, right.
Actually, this priest that was drinking a whole lot, right? He had a problem with that celibacy thing. He was drinking so much. And he dies, he goes to heaven. And he says, Lord, you're so merciful. Let me, a drunkard, come into heaven. You follow what I'm saying? You know? And Jesus says, God says, you know, but you all had it all wrong. It's not your fault. I said, celebrate. You know, the other part of this question is, you gotta listen carefully, you know? Folks don't listen carefully. The other part of the question, you know, androgynous man, right? What makes you a man is not that you possess 100% male hormones. It's that you possess enough male hormones. You with me? Man has both male and female hormones. So what makes you man or woman is the balance of the hormones. Okay? But not only is man androgynous, all things in this world are, you know, bipolar. Everything has both polarities within them. You see, and what makes a thing one or the other is the degree of one polarity over the other within it. You with me? Okay? So it's not, I know where you're coming from. You probably read some Hesp stuff and things like that. Really want to try to say that the original or the true man is supposed to be physically half male and physically half female. That's not true. It's not real. Okay? So don't let these people waste your mind with that information. Yes, sir.
Two questions I have are, am I my brother's keeper, and how do you know which ancestors to reach out to?
Very good. You are your brother's keeper. We're all our brother's keepers. Okay? From two perspectives. Okay? Your divine self, when you selflessly go out to take care of others, you are living in harmony with your divine self. You with me? If you're not there, then out of wise selfishness, you ought to keep your brother. Okay? If I only look out for myself, there's one person looking out for me. If I promote the knowledge that we should all look out for each other, then I have a whole bunch of folks looking out for me. So, from both perspectives, we are or ought to be our brother's keepers. Because it's you know, we need one another. We cannot live and accomplish, as a matter of fact, we don't do anything by ourselves. We do everything in life with the work and assistance of each other. That's why it is important to promote spiritual teachings in your society. So some people get caught up just pursuing the knowledge of business and economics and politics, not understanding that the spiritual life is what, establishes the harmony, the trust, and so on, that will enable us to succeed, and so on. Yes, my sister.
All right, some of us came from Detroit, and it's a study group there. We don't have a society yet. And the brothers and sisters that brought me, I found them recently. But I have been studying this civilization for over 20 years. And I wrote a story that tells the metaphors. And I know there's nothing that you said that is not true. And this is my book, and it's proof that it is.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. This is a novel, The Ritual of Eternity by Joanna Sane, Ancient Egypt Unveiled.
All right.
Let's start up, Sister Bill. This is you, right?
Yes, sir.
Please come on up so we can all see this beautiful. Come on up here.
What he wrote is magnificent.
Very good, so when did it come out?
Well, it came out the same time yours is, and my pride was that in the time of the Black Madonna in Detroit, they set mine beside yours, and the youngsters came in there and said, read his and read hers too.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to make sure that we order it for you.
I hope to get some more prints.
Okay, it's out of stock right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll talk about it.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right. Yes,
My
sir.
second question in regard to Nefer, and
You want to know if I studied the Metu?
Yeah, and under
I studied the Metu, okay? I'm not under any of the Europeans in America or in the world.
That's right.
Okay? The Metu speaks for itself.
Thank you.
Okay? Do you have the cards?
Yes.
That goes to volume 1. You read volume 1. You'll find that I give you an insight that is in the words themselves. That's in the etymology and the semantics of the words themselves. That Mercer and Breasted and all of these great Egyptologists missed. You see? So, and unfortunately many of our black Egyptologists and historians, got information from white historians. They say that there are some black Egyptologists or historians refer to Tehut as Thoth. And so that Thoth or Jehuti or Chehuti is the moon god. You see? Now, when you break it down, the word is Tehu, to measure, and T-Zazu. And when you understand the mathematical foundation of science, and the foundation of science is mathematics, you find that it is a double, principle, a dual principle, where one side of the equation must equal the other side of the equation.
That's right.
Okay? And you find that Tehuta is brother and husband of Ma'at. And the root of Ma'at is Ma'ah, and Ma'ah is the measure of a cubit. So the female side of Tehuta is also tied into measure, the rule, the regulation, that would, and the yardstick, etc. So you find that none of these Egyptologists, save one budge, understood the, a little bit about the, let's say, Tehuta. And I give you a breakdown of all these names. Heru, Kuhuti. There's not one single Egyptologist that tells you that Heru of the two horizons, meaning that his power is light, his glory extends from east to west, or the entire horizon. But the horizon is what? The symbol of that line that cuts off the seen from the unseen, the conscious from the subconscious. You see? That cuts off the lower from the higher parts of man, the light part from the dark part of man, and the tree of life, Rukuhuti is the mathematical divide of the tree. As the mathematical center is opposed to Heru, which is the geometrical center. Okay? So you have to go further than just simply the middle nature. You have to go into the actual spirit to understand the middle. Middle means the word of God. You see? Going back to Tehuti. Okay? Who is what? The tongue or the potential to evoke the word. You know what I'm saying? But who is also whom? still say today when we want to get the point, we go, thank you. That's good.
I just want to ask one quick question. I have a young child who's 20 months of age, and what type of process should I be gearing him for in terms of his spiritual growth and development?
The 20-month child, and she wants to find out what can she do and should she do. The first thing that you have to do is come to the Queen Mother or priest or priestess and get a spiritual reading for that child. Find out why did this child come to earth, meaning get an incarnation objective reading. You don't have to wait till the child is unruly, unmanageable, unlearned to find out what the child's reason was guiding that child. So the moment the child is born, you can find out what that child came to earth to do. Now, the second fact, I'm not finished yet with that. I want to hook you up good, sister. I'm not finished. I'm not going to let you loose now. You're going to find out more than you want to know. Based on that reading, get a name for that child.
That's right.
Even if you must go to City Hall and change the name, never too late. Go and change that name. Get a Kemetic name, a name that reflects that child's destiny path. You follow what I'm saying? So that every time somebody calls that child by that name, you see those powers and those spirits and the ancestors, he just looks up and says, who did it call him back? Okay. You understand?
Yeah.
The right name for that child. And then now, the third thing you must do is then now learn the rituals that correspond to that child's destiny so that you can, you say, do those meditations and rituals on the child's behalf.
Right.
You see? You know, besides giving the child, college education, stocks in blue chip company or whatever, you want to invoke the divine assistance for that child, the best thing you can do for that child. Okay? Yes, sir.
In the Sanskrit and our Dravidian ancestors, they advocated the need for living.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry. In the Sanskrit, what?
In the Sanskrit scripts in our Dravidian ancestors, they advocate a need for a living master in order to open up the eye of Peru, Krishna. My question to you is that or clear this up for me, rather. Are you advocating that the worship or the honoring of the oracle will open up the eye of Peru or Trishna?
Okay. First of all,
is that understandable?
I understand your question, sir. Very well. Yes.
Okay.
First of all, the Sanskrit is the language of the Aryans, not the Dravidians. Okay? And the Dravidians are Dalit. If you go to India, don't call the black people Dravidians, that's like calling them niggers. They are Dalit. Dalit. All right? Okay? And there's several books around about the Dalit, that if you don't know that these are people talking about, you miss, because they're going through the same kind of civil rights struggles that we're going on right now. Because India is, India is the first apartheid the world ever knew, and it's still going on right now. Okay? The first was Africa, next India, last America. It's going to be that way. It's the fall of apartheid. Okay. The living master, okay, is needed. But the living master need not be living in the flesh. The living master could be living in the flesh, but he's not limited to coming to you in the flesh. Some people try to get away from me, so I go to them in their dreams. Okay? The ancestors. Somebody asked the question, how do you choose the right ancestors and so forth? Don't worry, they'll choose you. They have already chosen you. Before you came to earth, your ancestors already chose, you're already hooked up with your ancestor. Okay? So once you begin to do these rituals that we prescribed for you, you will come in contact with your ancestral teachers. And they will help you to open up that eye. You understand? Okay? But in every tradition, though, there might be a need for a living master to keep order on earth, because when you have people, everybody walking around talking about, I have an ancestor, you get a lot of crazy things happening. So you need sometimes a teacher on earth to make sure that the standard is obeyed and kept straight. Otherwise, you get all kind of crazy things. Everybody claiming to be the one, you know, and so on, you know. Some people walk around talking about my answer. I've never seen an answer in the first day of their life yet. Okay? So it's that way. Yes, sister. Speak loud for the brother with the camera in the back.
Where it said that the creation, God created himself, our man, out of nothing, he was concealed. But what my question is that the will and the power, they said, impregnated itself, and there was another being, another attribute of God coming about. And I'm very confused about that.
So which book was this?
The new one. I mean, in the older book. Which first book? Metu's here. Volume 1 about the creation. It says something like,
on page 51, I wrote here, the words of Nefer, Lord of the world, which he spoke after coming into being. Is that what you're talking about? I am he who came into being in the form of the infinite power of sufficient Keturah. I became the creator of what came into being. After my coming into being, many were the things which came into being, coming forth from my mouth, meaning words of power. Not existed heaven, not existed earth, not having created the things of the earth and creeping things in that place. I raised them out of new from the state of inactivity. Not found I a place, and I made all attributes. I was alone, for not had I spit out the form of shoe, not had I emitted testnut, not existed others who worked with me. I made a foundation by means of my will, and there came into being the multitude of things. I became from God one, God three, that is from out of myself. Is that what you mean, that passage?
yeah.
Now what about it, dear?
I just don't understand it. How he did that with two parts of his being.
In other words, okay, I see. God has
second and third sphere.
So God has
Two parts, right?
God is consciousness and will, right? Yeah. And the energy and matter of the world. You with me? Yeah? God, with its consciousness and will, acts upon its energy and matter to shape itself into the things of this world. You with me? That's how God creates the world. And that's how you two create the things and effects in your life. Okay? Perhaps in volume 2, you know, that what is the little passage in volume 1, I devote 2 whole chapters to that. So perhaps you need to read volume 2 to get a better insight into the creation process as taught in ancient Egypt. You understand? Okay. So maybe it's the positive information that is, you know, keeping you from understanding it. Over here, brother.
Yes, I have to go back to work, and I don't have a lot more time. I took off to work to come here.
We'll be pretty soon, brother, right? Understand? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my question is about white people. Are white people capable of going through the initiation system? Have there ever been any white people that have went through successfully the Kemetic initiation system? And when you travel astrally, do you ever see any white people in heaven?
First of all, you know, this thing about heaven is not a black concept, you know? You know, in our thing, we don't have a heaven and hell thing, you know? Okay? When I invoke my ancestors, the ancestors come to me are all black ancestors. So that doesn't mean that they may not be white people on that level or whatever. It's just simply that when I call my ancestors black. Okay? You know, all human beings, all men, are capable of spiritual development. You with me? The question is, you know, will they accept the teaching? Okay? Truth is that when the Greeks and the Persians came to Egypt, they destroyed and stole rather than, you know, use it to elevate themselves. When the Christians and the Muslims came, they destroyed and stole rather than, preserve and uplift the culture and themselves with it. So the historical, record is that they did not take the best part of the black world. Okay, 2 last questions. Yes, my brother.
I want to know, what do you think about the possibilities of us attaining spiritual development without having a society that's around us, that nurtures us, where we are self-sustainable in all the necessities in life, as opposed to participating in these satanic activities that surround us and trying to reach that level?
The brother wants to know the possibility of us, achieving perfection in our initiations, surrounded with all the satanic influences and not having the right kind of society to surround us and so forth. Like your ancestors have. Okay? You see, we cannot push unless there's a resistance. You see, the King, the Chinese Book of Wisdom, the Chinese Oracle, the 39 hexagram says that the superior man understands that all impediments and obstructions are challenges and incitement to spiritual development. So the greater the challenge, the greater the strength you have to summon. Okay? Now, so I understand that the challenge is much greater now, today, than it perhaps was when we were back in Africa, whatever, and so forth. It just simply means that you have to reach down for greater strength, and there's no limit to the strength that's down there. Okay? So the power is within you. Never, look at the difficulties that surround you and believe that it is so much. It is never so much that God cannot rescue you. Call upon God. Okay? Yes, my brother.
Okay.
I just want to give an addendum to that, because many of us go to white man's universities and they try to make us believe, this environmental theory. Okay, that you are a product of the environment nurturing. So the environment does not nurture you, you cannot, overcome and so on and so forth. And guess who controls the environment? Yeah, so don't let them put it on you, my brother. Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank you for the lecture. Well received. I'd like to ask a question in regards to, I hear a lot of times a lot of people say they have this conversation with themselves, or this little small or still voice within. I'd like for you to give me a little insight on that, and how do you differentiate that little still voice from, the one that you need to hear, or whether or not that's that emotions or that feeling?
Comb the Kemetic records as you may, and you will not find teachings of a still voice within. I came across this thing about the voice of silence and the still voice and the little voice within you from the Alice Bailey stuff and other European philosophical thing and so forth. Madame Blavatsky, she had to smoke hashish to go into trance. I give you words of power. Things of that nature. First of all, the voice within you, that which within you communicates through the voice. Be careful. That's Sebek. The leg part, the left side of the brain. When you meditate, for enlightenment purpose, for revelation, when you meditate for revelation, the highest manifestation of revelation is to put a stop to all mental processing. Images must fall away. Verbal information must be stilled. You see? When I want to know something, if a symbol, a picture, or a verbal sentence or whatever comes to me explaining what a thing is, I'll never know the thing. Right? I can read Hemingway's description of sex, but I never know sex until I have it. I must have intercourse with the object itself. So when you want to know, you must drop all communication, all symbolization, whether it's graphic or oral. So when you want to know, you don't want to hear anything, no voice, you want to become one with the object of knowledge. You see? So the process of meditating for revelation and enlightenment is to get rid of voices and images or whatever so that you can communicate and become at one with the object that you're seeking to know. So you don't want to hear about God. I don't care how softly the voice speaks. Somebody can manage that. You know, when you want to know God, you don't want a graphic film, even though a picture's worth 1,000 little voices. You see? Because a lot of people walking around having heard about God, misguided into the belief that hearing about God is knowing God. No, you have to realize the God within you. You understand? One of the things you can discover is that the literature, there are a lot of books out there written by people, you know, books about spiritual, you know, realities and experiences and so forth, written by people who themselves never experienced any of these spiritual states. You understand? Okay? Before, you know, I wrote Metu Volume 1. You know, I wrote that book in 1990. I wanted to write it back in 1973. Right? But I said to myself, I will not write this book until I have had full experience with all these words of power on the tree of life. So it took all those years before the book could be written. But there are people who go and they research other people's books and they make up and imagine all kinds of metaphoric statements. They write all these books, and all of y'all, very spiritual, all confused though. I meet so many people who are so spiritual, who've been studying one form of spirituality for 10, 20, 25, 30, 40 years, and they are still controlled by the emotions, the lower part of their being. They don't know what truth from falsehood is because they have all these kind of simplistic metaphors about the little voice within, you know, and all this false, you know, I mean, it sounds nice, you know. You can write a lot of nice songs using little statements like that, and, you know, and poems and things like that and so forth, but these are all devilatory statements. Before you poetize and so forth, you ought to experience the actual spiritual states themselves. Or these are accurate scientific statements that were made in the ancient Egyptian and African teachings. Thank you very much. God bless you.